Between 1920 and 1929, roughly 115 million Americans experienced the wildest decade in modern history, encountering jazz, prohibition, automobiles, and unprecedented freedoms. The Roaring Twenties were electric and revolutionary, but for the average person, daily life was a strange mix of ancient tradition and shocking modernity. Here's what life was really like during America's most transformative decade. Real quick, like or subscribe if you want more of these, and tell me where you are and what time. I saw someone from Tokyo last week saying it was already tomorrow there, still trying to wrap my head around that. Tonight's stop, America in the 1920s. Hold up though, get cozy first. Adjust those pillows, pull up that blanket. Trust me, once we get going, you won't want to move. Your eyes open to a New York tenement apartment, 1921. First thing that hits you is the noise. Voices through paper-thin walls, water pipes clanging, a baby crying somewhere down the hall. You're on a metal-framed bed with a lumpy cotton mattress that smells faintly of mildew and sweat. Unlike your cozy bed now, this one's shared with your brother, who's already up and washing at the small basin balanced on a wooden chair. "Hey, sleepyhead," he says, splashing his face. "Factory whistle's gonna blow in 40 minutes. The room is tiny, maybe 10 feet square, with 2 beds crammed against opposite walls. A single window faces a brick wall across an air shaft so narrow you could touch the next building if you reached out. That window's your primary source of ventilation, which means in summer you choose between privacy or suffocating heat. In winter, like now, icy drafts slip through the loose frame, making the thin blankets almost useless. You know that feeling when your alarm goes off but your bed's so warm you can't bear to leave it? Multiply that by 1,000. It's January in New York and the only heat comes from a coal stove in the main room that your mother's already firing up. You can hear her coughing from the coal dust. The apartment has 4 rooms total. This bedroom you share with your brother, another tiny bedroom where your parents and 2 sisters sleep, the main room that serves as kitchen and living area, and a small water closet with a toilet. That's luxury, actually. Indoor plumbing? Some tenements still have outhouses in the back courtyard, but your toilet's just a toilet. No bathtub, no shower. For that, it's the public bathhouse once a week, maybe. "Ma's making coffee," your brother says, toweling off. "Actual coffee today, not that chicory stuff." Speaking of survival, that's the first thought that hits your brain every morning in 1921. How do we make it through today? The alarm clock beside your bed cost nearly a week's wages. But it's essential. Miss your shift at the garment factory and someone takes your spot before lunch. There's always a hungry line of immigrants waiting for work. I spent way too long researching tenement housing layouts for this. Did you know some didn't even have windows except in the front room? Actual death traps where people lived for decades. Your stomach growls as you swing your legs over the side of the bed. The wooden floor is ice cold against your bare feet. In your modern bed right now, you might have a carpet beside you, warm socks, maybe slippers waiting. Here it's bare boards and the shock of cold that finishes waking you up. Ma traded Mrs. Goldstein some darning for an extra loaf, your brother says, pulling on a patched shirt. So there's actual toast. Food. Always food. The constant calculation of calories versus cost. Your factory job pays $12 a week for 60 hours of work. Rent for this 4-room tenement apartment is $30 a month. Do the math and weep. Every penny goes to a complex equation of survival. You pull on wool socks with holes in the toes, heavy cotton trousers worn thin at the knees, a flannel shirt patched at the elbows, and suspenders that were your father's before his factory accident last year. Getting dressed in the 1920s isn't the casual affair it is now. Everything has purpose. Everything gets used until it disintegrates, then gets repurposed again. Pop's already gone, your brother says, lacing up his boots. Night shift at the dock. That's how families survive in 1921. Tag team working. Father works nights unloading ships, sleeps days. You and your brother work days at the garment factory. Mother takes in laundry, mending, whatever odd jobs come along. Your older sister works at Woolworths. The younger one's still in school, but not for long. At 14, she'll join the workforce soon enough. The landlord's like, $5 or you're out. And you're thinking, $5? That's half my weekly pay. Because eviction is a constant threat hanging over every family. No tenant protections, no lease agreements for most. Just weekly envelopes of cash and the landlord's mood determining your housing security. You make your way to the main room where your mother stands at the coal stove, stirring a pot of oatmeal. The stove provides the only warmth in the apartment, making this room the heart of your home. The room smells of coal smoke, coffee, and yesterday's cabbage soup. "Sleep okay?" your mother asks, not looking up. Her hands are red and chapped from washing other people's clothes. She's 43 but looks 60. "Fine," you lie. The truth is, you were up half the night listening to your father coughing in the next room. That dock dust gets in the lungs. Breakfast in 1921 is serious business. No grabbing a protein bar or coffee shop stop. This meal needs to fuel hours of physical labor. Your mother ladles thick oatmeal into a chipped bowl, adds a sprinkle of sugar, a luxury, and pours coffee into a tin cup. The coffee's stretched with chicory to make it last longer, bitter but hot. You know those fancy artisanal toast places charging $8 for avocado toast? Yeah, no. Your toast is a thick slice of day-old bread, slightly stale, held over the stove grate until it browns, then spread with a scraping of lard. Protein and calories, the currency of survival. Through the window, you can see the street 5 floors below coming alive. A milk wagon rattles past, glass bottles clinking. The milkman's horse leaves steaming deposits on the cobblestones, which kids will dodge on their way to school. A man with a pushcart shouts about hot chestnuts. The newspaper boy's already shouting headlines about prohibition raids. "Tony got arrested last night," your sister says, entering from the other bedroom. She's already dressed for work, hair pinned up severely, caught with a flask at Mancini's place. And here we encounter one of the most bizarre experiments in American history: prohibition. January 1920. The government decided alcohol was the root of all evil and banned it completely. Manufacturing, selling, transporting, all illegal. Can you imagine the absolute chaos? Picture the government deciding tomorrow that coffee is illegal, or sugar, or I don't know, cheese, something millions of people use daily. What happens? People don't stop, they just get creative. "Tony's an idiot," your brother says, wolfing down oatmeal. Everyone knows Mancini's gets raided on Tuesdays. Because that's how prohibition actually worked, this elaborate dance between cops who needed to show arrests and speakeasies that reopened the next day with a new password. The password this week? I'm thirsty. Real subtle. The speakeasy doorman gives you this look. Password? He growls, and you're standing there like, thirsty? Because even the passwords were an open secret. Everyone knew which barbershops had illegal bars in the back, which pharmacies would sell you medicinal whiskey, which grocery stores had wine grapes labelled "warning, will ferment into wine if left in warm place for 3 weeks. You finish breakfast standing up, too rushed to sit. Through the walls you can hear the Calabrese family's morning argument, the Levinsky baby crying, Mrs. O'Rourke's morning coughing fit. Privacy doesn't exist in tenement life. Everyone knows everyone's business, troubles, joys. Outside, the January air hits like a slap. The street teems with people, women with shopping baskets, men hurrying to work, children darting between adults. The smell is a complex mix of coal smoke, horse manure, garbage waiting for collection, and the enticing scent of bread from the Italian bakery on the corner. Your breath forms clouds in the frigid air as you and your brother join the river of workers flowing toward the factories, women in headscarves, men in caps, all moving with purpose. This early, the automobiles are few, mostly delivery trucks bringing goods to shops. The wealthy with their private cars won't be out until later. Race you past Scarpelli's, your brother says, and you both break into a jog, dodging pedestrians. Physical fitness wasn't a hobby in 1921, it was built into daily life. No one had gym memberships because life itself was a constant workout. Past the butcher shop with its window display of cuts most modern Americans wouldn't recognize, past the greengrocer where your mother will haggle over bruised vegetables later, past Mrs. Finkelstein who runs the notion shop where your sister buys thread to mend everything endlessly. The garment factory looms ahead, 6 stories of brick with windows that barely open in summer, creating an inferno where you and 500 others work. In winter, like now, those same windows let in drafts that make your fingers so numb you can barely operate the sewing machine. You ever had that moment where you're one paycheck from disaster? That was Tuesday for most people. No safety net existed, no unemployment insurance, no workers' compensation, no social security. Your boss basically says, work faster or someone else will, because there's always someone hungrier waiting for your job. Waiting at the factory entrance is Mr. Perkins, the floor manager, checking his pocket watch. 2 minutes to whistle, he says, nodding as you pass. Being late means docked pay or worse. Inside, the factory floor stretches vast and already humming. Rows of sewing machines, pressing stations, cutting tables. The air's thick with fabric dust, steam and the smell of machine oil. Your lungs will feel it by day's end. The workers are a United Nations assembly, Italian, Jewish, Irish, Polish, Greek, first and second generation immigrants building America stitch by stitch. English mixes with a dozen other languages in a constant babble beneath the machine noise. You take your station at the sewing machine as the starting whistle blasts. For the next 12 hours you'll feed fabric through the machine, creating men's shirts sold in fancy department stores for more money than you make in days. Your back will ache, your eyes will strain, your hands will cramp. The woman beside you, Mrs. Levin, nods hello. She's 60 if she's a day, fingers permanently curved from decades at the machine. My Sadie's engaged, she tells you during a brief lull, to a dentist. The pride in her voice tells the whole immigrant story. First generation suffers, so the second can rise. Lunch break comes after 6 hours, 20 minutes to wolf down the sandwich your mother packed. Bread, a slice of bologna, a pickle if you're lucky. Workers sprawl on crates or lean against walls, too tired to even leave the building. I mean, imagine working without any of the protections we take for granted. No breaks required by law, no safety standards, the fire escape doors often locked to prevent theft. After the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in 1911 killed 146 workers, some improvements came, but not nearly enough. The afternoon drags, fingers flying on autopilot while minds wander. You've made 63 shirt collars so far. Quota is 100 by day's end. Fall short 3 days running and there's someone to take your place. By 4 o'clock, winter darkness already falls. The gas lights flicker on, making precision work even harder. Outside the grimy windows, snow begins to fall, adding another worry. Bad weather means streetcar delays, icy sidewalks, wet feet leading to colds you can't afford. The cop on the corner looks at your flask and goes, "I didn't see nothing," because even they knew prohibition was a joke. The police had an impossible job enforcing a law nobody wanted, leading to the first modern era of widespread corruption. Badge by day, speakeasy customer by night. quitting whistle finally blasts at 7. Your back screams as you straighten, fingers stiff claws that slowly uncurl. Around you, hundreds of workers sigh collectively, gather belongings, bundle up for the cold journey home. Payday tomorrow, your brother says, as you push through the crowd towards the exit. Those magic words that make it all worthwhile, or at least bearable. Outside, snow falls thicker now, muffling the city sounds. Gas streetlights create halos in the white air. Your feet crunch along the accumulating snow as you join the exodus home. Some lucky workers board streetcars, paying their nickel fare. You and your brother walk to save the money. Wait, let me back up. Your feet. You're wearing boots with thin soles and leaks where the leather's cracked. Each step in the snow sends a shock of cold up your legs. By the time you reach home, your socks will be wet, your toes numb. Modern waterproof boots with thermal insulation, pure fantasy. The streets transform in the evening hours. Shops close, restaurants and social clubs light up. Music drifts from open doors, the new jazz that moral guardians claim is corrupting youth. On the corner, a newsboy shouts, "President Harding's cabinet announced, read all about it." And here's something wild. Despite prohibition being barely a year old, you pass 3 speakeasies on your 10-block walk home. You recognize them by the line of cars outside nondescript buildings, the faint sound of jazz, the bouncer eyeing everyone who approaches. One's disguised as a soda shop, another as a bookstore, the third doesn't even pretend. Just a blank door with a sliding peephole. "We should stop at Mancini's," your brother suggests. "1 drink. I got paid for that extra work." This is how most workers cope with the crushing routine. A quick drink before home, a moment of escape. But it's different now, shadowed with the thrill and danger of illegality. After Tony? No way, you answer. Murphy's on Thursday. Because even in speakeasy culture, you had your routine. Different nights, different places. Spreading your illegal business around was just smart. When you finally climb the 5 flights to your tenement apartment, the smell of cabbage soup greets you. Your mother's stretched yesterday's leftovers, added an onion and potato with thick slices of bread. It'll fill bellies. Your father's at the table already, looking grey with exhaustion after his night shift. Your sisters set out chipped bowls and tin cups. This is dinner in working-class 1921. Simple food, eaten together, the meal planned around overlapping work schedules. "Got a letter from cousin Frank in Chicago," your father says between spoonfuls. Says there's good work in the stockyards, better pay than here. And there it is, the constant calculation. Stay or go, endure known hardships or risk new ones. Mobility wasn't just a luxury in the 1920s. It was a survival strategy. Follow the work, follow the opportunity, keep moving to stay ahead of poverty. After dinner, your family's evening ritual unfolds. Your father repairs a chair leg while your mother mends clothes. Your sister reads aloud from the newspaper, one of the Italian dailies, while your younger sister struggles through homework at the table. No private rooms for homework, no quiet study space. Life happens collectively in the 2 main rooms. Says here they raided 50 speakeasies last night, your sister reads. Confiscated 500 gallons of liquor. Your father snorts. 500? That's what, one night's business? Waste of time? And he's right. Prohibition created the first modern criminal underground, turned ordinary citizens into lawbreakers, corrupted police forces nationwide, all while failing spectacularly at its goal of creating a dry nation. By 9 o'clock, exhaustion catches everyone. Tomorrow's another work day, another alarm clock, another 60 hours of labour stretching ahead. In your comfortable bed right now, you might stay up reading, watching shows, scrolling through social media. In 1921, sleep was the only affordable luxury. You return to the tiny bedroom, now freezing as the coal stove in the main room burns down for the night. Undressing quickly, you slide between cold sheets, pull the thin blankets up, and wait for your body heat to create a small pocket of warmth. Your brother's already in bed, reading a dog-eared pulp magazine by the weak light of a single bulb. Electricity in tenements was still relatively new, unreliable, expensive, but magical compared to gaslighting. Night, he says, switching off the light. In the darkness, you hear the symphony of tenement life. Babies crying, couples arguing, someone playing a violin badly, water pipes knocking, the L train rumbling 2 blocks away. These sounds are the lullaby of urban 1921. As you drift towards sleep, you wonder what tomorrow will bring. The same, probably. The relentless routine of survival. But also, maybe not, because the 1920s were just beginning their roar, and change was coming faster than anyone could imagine. Through the window, snow continues to fall on a New York transformed from just a decade ago. Horse-drawn wagons share streets with automobiles now. Telephones connect businesses. Movies flicker silently in palatial theatres. Women's hemlines creep scandalously upward. And somewhere in Brooklyn, a 6-year-old named Miriam listens to her immigrant parents dream of a better future for her. In 40 years, she'll be your grandmother, telling you stories of the hardships that seem impossible from the comfort of your modern life. You're falling asleep now, body aching from work, mind already calculating tomorrow's survival. But there's also a current of excitement, because it's 1921 and America is changing by the minute. Who knows what might be possible by decade's end? Now let's shift our view. While tenement dwellers in New York fought for survival inch by inch, a different America stretched across the vast countryside. It's 1923 now, and we're waking up on a farm in Iowa, about 100 miles west of Des Moines. The first thing you notice is the silence. No neighbors arguing through thin walls, no streetcars clanging, no factory whistles. Just the distant crow of a rooster and the soft lowing of cows needing to be milked. You're in a wooden farmhouse that your grandfather built with his own hands after claiming this land under the Homestead Act decades ago. You're lying on a feather mattress instead of cotton and springs. The feathers came from your own geese, plucked, washed and stuffed by your mother and sisters last fall. The sheets are rough cotton but clean, line-dried in yesterday's sunshine. The quilt covering you was made by your grandmother, each square telling a family story in fabric. It's barely 5 a.m., but farm life doesn't care about clocks. Your body knows the rhythm without an alarm. Cows need milking at sunrise no matter what. The wooden floor is cold against your bare feet, but you're used to it. The house is heated by a single wood stove downstairs, meaning upstairs bedrooms stay cold enough in winter to see your breath. "You up, John," your father calls from downstairs. He's been awake for 30 minutes already, stoking the kitchen stove for your mother, who's mixing biscuit dough by the light of a kerosene lamp. "Coming, Pa," you answer, pulling on denim overalls over your long underwear. No shower this morning, or any morning. The farmhouse has no indoor plumbing. There's an outhouse 50 yards behind the kitchen, and a pump at the kitchen sink that brings up cold water from the well. For washing, you splash your face and hands with water from the ceramic basin on your dresser, water that froze a thin skin of ice overnight. Breakfast on a 1923 farm is no quick affair. You need serious calories for the work ahead. Your mother has already cooked a skillet of salt pork, its fat used to season the cast iron pan now full of scrambled eggs from your own chickens. Biscuits bake in the oven. Coffee boils in an enamel pot strong enough to stand a spoon in. "Today's the day," your father says, pouring coffee for himself. His hands are permanently tanned from years in the fields, with calluses thick as leather. Jenkins is bringing it around noon. Your heart skips. Today's the day your family joins the revolution that's transforming America. automobile ownership. After years of saving, your father's buying a Model T Ford from the dealer in town. You've never owned a car before. Few farm families have, but that's changing fast. "Think it'll make it up the hill to the Petersons?" your mother asks, setting a plate of eggs before you. She's worried about the expense, the practicality. 20 years of horse transportation doesn't shift overnight. Henry Ford didn't become the richest man in America by making things that don't work, your father answers, but there's worry behind his confidence. The Model T costs $290, a fortune for a family that might see actual cash only a few times a year after harvest. Farmers in the 1920s operated largely outside the cash economy most of the time. You produced what you ate, you bartered eggs for sugar at the general store, traded labor with neighbors during harvest, repaired what broke, made what you needed. Actual dollars were rare and precious. After breakfast, you head to the barn with your father and younger brother. The daily chores wait for no one, car delivery or not. The barn smells of hay, manure, and the sweet breath of cows. 6 dairy cows need milking, the horses need feeding, the pigs need slop. Your hands move automatically, squeezing rhythmically as warm milk hisses into the metal bucket. "Pa, can I drive it first?" your brother asks, fork deep in soiled straw. Your father laughs. "Nobody's driving but me till I figure it out. That thing cost more than the South Field. I spent hours researching early car ownership, and the learning curve was brutal. No driver's education, no licensing requirements in most rural areas, just a complicated machine, some basic instructions, and a lot of trial and error. The manual for a 1923 Model T included helpful tips like, to stop the car, first pull the gas lever back to neutral, then apply the brake. Do not become frightened and jump out. The morning passes in the rhythm of chores as old as farming itself. Milk the cows, separate cream, feed livestock, gather eggs, repair fences, check crops. The work of survival never ends, but there's a strange comfort in its predictability. By 11, you've changed into your town clothes. Not fancy, but clean overalls and a collar shirt without manure stains. Your mother's put on her good dress, the blue one saved for church and special occasions. Even your father's combed his hair and put on a freshly ironed shirt. "Hear that?" your brother says, running in from the porch. "It's coming!" And then you hear it, the unmistakable put-put-put of a Model T engine labouring up the dirt road to your farm, the sound of the modern world arriving at your door. Your whole family spills onto the porch, watching as a shiny black automobile bounces over the ruts of your lane. Mr. Jenkins from the dealership grins behind the wheel, dust coating him from the 12-mile drive from town. "She's a beauty, ain't she?" he calls, bringing the vehicle to a jerky stop in your yard. Chickens scatter in panic at this noisy intruder, and she is beautiful. Gleaming black metal, brass headlamps, a folding top for rain protection. The Model T isn't fancy by later standards. It's utilitarian, designed to handle the brutal rural roads with high clearance and a tough suspension. But to your family in 1923, it's nothing short of miraculous. "Can drive her anywhere," Mr. Jenkins says, patting the hood like a favourite horse. 15 horsepower, 20 miles per hour on good roads. 20 miles per hour. The math transforms your world instantly. The trip to town, 12 miles that takes half a day by horse and wagon, suddenly shrinks to maybe 40 minutes. The county seat, previously a full-day journey, becomes a morning trip. Mr. Jenkins pops the hood to show your father the engine. Now starting her takes some practice. Got the hand crank here in front. Choke here, timing advance here. Too much choke, she'll flood. Not enough, won't catch. Timing too advanced, she'll kick back and break your arm. Wait, what? Yeah, starting early cars was legitimately dangerous. The hand crank could snap back and break bones if the timing was wrong. Emergency rooms of the 1920s were full of what doctors called Ford fractures, broken arms, wrists and thumbs from car cranks kicking back. Your father nods seriously, absorbing every word. This is the most complicated piece of technology your family has ever owned. More complex than the cream separator, more expensive than anything but the farm itself. Now, driving her's simple enough, Jenkins continues. 3 pedals on the floor, left is clutch, press down for low gear, release halfway for high gear, middle is reverse, right is brake. Your father looks concerned. Middle is reverse, not the left, Jenkins laughs. Ford's got his own way of doing things, different from other makers. You'll get used to it. And that was actually true. Early cars had zero standardization. Pedal arrangements, shifting patterns, even which side of the road to drive on wasn't fully settled in all states yet. Learning to drive one car didn't necessarily prepare you for another. After more instructions, Jenkins has your father sit behind the wheel. Turn the key, set the gas lever here, set the spark advance here, now come around front and give her a crank. Your father follows directions, moves to the front, grips the crank and gives it a mighty swing. Nothing happens. Another swing. Nothing. Bit more choke, Jenkins suggests. Third try, the engine catches with a roar and a belch of smoke that sends your mother's chickens running for their lives. Your father rushes back to the driver's seat, where Jenkins walks him through the pedals again. Ready for a spin? Jenkins asks. Your father nods, face set in concentration. The car lurches forward with a jerk, stalls, starts again, jerks forward, picks up speed. Your father's face transforms from worry to wonder as the automobile begins moving smoothly around the farmyard. Want to take her on the road? Jenkins calls above the engine noise. Your father nods, and the Model T bounces down the lane toward the country road, your father gripping the wheel like it might fly away. You and your brother chase after on foot, whooping with excitement. From your porch, the car disappears around the bend, but you can hear the engine echoing across the cornfields. 10 minutes later, it reappears, your father now smiling broadly behind the wheel. The future has arrived at your farm and nothing will ever be the same. After Jenkins leaves, driven home by your father, who'll return with the car alone, his first solo drive, the family crowds around the Model T like it's a spacecraft. Your mother touches the leather seat cautiously. Imagine getting to town in under an hour, she says softly, and you can see her calculating all the ways this changes her life. The isolation of farm women was profound before cars. Visits to town might happen once a month at most, church on Sundays if weather permitted. Otherwise, the farm was your world. I can drive to the Peterson place in minutes, your father says, already planning. Borrow that new seed drill without losing a whole day to travel. Your brother crawls underneath, examining the axles and suspension. How fast do you think it really goes, Pa? We'll find out tomorrow, your father promises. First, I need to figure out how to drive the darn thing properly. And figure it out he does, though not without incident. That first month of car ownership brings new vocabulary into your family's life. Words like carburetor, distributor, and flat tire become regular topics at the dinner table. There's the memorable afternoon your father drives into the yard too fast and sideswipes the water trough, denting the fender. There's the Sunday your whole family dresses for church, piles into the car, and makes it exactly 2 miles before a tire blows out. Your father changes it in his good suit, sweating and swearing under his breath while your mother pretends not to hear. The new car dealer looks at the flat tire and goes, "Yup, that'll be $4. And your father's thinking, $4? That's 3 days' wages for a farmhand, because the ongoing costs of car ownership shocked many first-time buyers. It wasn't just the purchase price. It was tires, gasoline, oil, repairs, a whole new category of expenses for families who previously fed their transportation with hay they grew themselves. But there are glorious moments too. The first time your family drives to town for supplies and makes the round trip in a single morning instead of a full day. The Sunday you drive 20 miles to visit cousins you previously saw only at Christmas because of the travel difficulty. The night your mother goes into town for a women's club meeting and comes home after dark, something impossible in the horse and buggy days. The car changes everything. Suddenly your map expands. The farm is no longer an island in a sea of distance. Town becomes an easy destination, not a journey requiring planning. Neighbours 5 miles away become people you can visit on a whim. By summer, your father has mastered the Model T completely. You and your brother have learned to drive too, at least enough to move it around the farmyard or drive the short distance to the main road. Your mother still refuses to try, claiming she has no head for machinery, but you've seen her eyeing the wheel when she thinks no one's looking. The car enables new freedoms, but it also leads to new family negotiations. Who gets the car, when, and for what purpose? Your sister wants to drive to town for a motion picture show. Your brother wants to take it fishing at the creek. Your father needs it for farm business. The single vehicle becomes a shared resource requiring complex family diplomacy. "We need rules," your mother announces at dinner one night after 3 separate car usage disputes. Church on Sundays, market days for supplies, farm business first, social calls only when work's done. Farm business included things modern folks might not consider, like getting a sick animal to the vet, hauling cream to the dairy station before it's spoiled, or bringing home a new breeding animal. One farmer's diary I found mentioned driving 80 miles round trip to purchase a particular bull for his dairy herd, a journey that would have taken days before cars. The greatest transformation comes in autumn. Harvest time, always the most critical and stressful season, changes with automobile ownership. Parts break on the threshing machine. Your father drives to town and returns with replacements in 2 hours instead of losing a whole day. Need extra hands for harvesting. He drives to town and brings back day labourers. A bumper crop ready for market? Multiple trips become possible in a single day. The car also connects your family to the wider changes sweeping America. Driving to the county seat, you see more automobiles each visit. The dirt roads, designed for horses and wagons, are being graded more frequently to accommodate car traffic. There's talk of paving some major routes. Your father returns from town one day with news. They're putting in a filling station on Main Street. No more buying gasoline in cans from the general store. Gas stations, car dealerships, repair shops, whole new categories of business spring up to serve the automobile culture. Roads improve, bridges strengthen. The landscape itself transforms to accommodate this revolution on wheels. By Christmas 1923, your family's Model T seems as essential as the plough or the stove. When snow blankets the farm and your father puts the car up on blocks in the barn for the winter, early cars weren't great in snow and many rural families simply didn't use them during winter months. There's a sense of loss, of returning to an isolation you'd briefly escaped. The car sits idle through the deep winter months, but plans form around it. Your father pores over maps, plotting spring journeys previously unimaginable. Your mother talks of visiting her sister in the next county, a trip previously requiring overnight stays. Your older sister, home from normal school for the holidays, speaks of perhaps living in town and driving home weekends once she starts teaching. Mobility breeds possibility. The car shrinks distance and expands horizons simultaneously. For your family and millions like you, the automobile isn't just a convenience. It's freedom in steel and rubber form. On Christmas Eve, sitting by lamplight, rural electrification is still years away for most farms. Your grandfather tells tales of his youth, crossing half the country by covered wagon, establishing the homestead, the isolation of those early years. Took 3 days to get to town when I first settled here, he says, shaking his head at the changes he's witnessed. And you can do it before lunch. This compression of time and space is the real revolution of the 1920s. The world simultaneously grows larger in reach and smaller in effort. America's vast distances, once barriers to connection, begin to shrink beneath rubber tires. When spring finally softens the land, your father reverses the winterizing process, checking the Model T carefully before taking it down from blocks. The first drive of the new season feels like rebirth, the farm reconnecting to the wider world after months of winter isolation. By now, the novelty has worn off, but the wonder hasn't. Each time the engine rumbles to life, each mile that passes beneath the wheels represents a freedom previous generations could barely imagine. Your grandparents measured travel in days and weather conditions. You measure it in hours and gallons of gasoline. And as your family's Model T bounces down country roads, it joins a growing river of vehicles, transforming America mile by mile. By decade's end, the country will have more than 23 million registered automobiles, 1 for every 5 Americans. The nation itself is being rewired around this invention, its geography rewritten in routes accessible by car. The automobile doesn't just change how you travel, it changes where you go, who you see, what you do, what you buy, where you might live or work. It reshapes your relationship with time, distance, community, and possibility. And it's just one of the revolutions remaking America in the roaring decade of the 1920s. It's 1925 now, and we're in Millerville, a small town of about 2,500 souls, nestled between rolling hills in western Pennsylvania. Not a big city like New York, not isolated farmland like Iowa, but something in between, the quintessential American small town where modern life and traditional values collide in fascinating ways. You wake up in a modest 2-story home on Elm Street, just 3 blocks from Maine. Unlike the tenement apartment or the isolated farmhouse, this bedroom is yours alone, a luxury of middle-class life. The bed has a proper metal frame, a store-bought mattress, and a colourful quilt your mother ordered from the Sears catalogue. Morning light filters through cotton curtains as you stretch beneath warm blankets. Outside your window, you can hear birds chirping, the occasional automobile puttering past, and the distant whistle of the 7:15 train arriving at the station. The house smells of coffee and bacon. Unlike city dwellers crammed in tenements or farmers isolated on distant homesteads, your family represents the growing American middle class. Not wealthy, but comfortable. Your father works as the manager at the town's hardware store. Your mother, unusually for married women in 1925, keeps the books for the same business. Your bedroom contains treasures that mark you as a teenager in this transitional decade. A small collection of phonograph records stacked beside a hand-cranked Victrola player, movie magazine clippings of Clara Bow and Rudolph Valentino pinned to the wall, a crystal radio set you built yourself from a kit ordered through Popular Mechanics. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, feet hitting a proper rug instead of bare boards. The house has modern conveniences your city and country counterparts might envy. Indoor plumbing with a bathroom shared by the family, electric lights in most rooms, a telephone in the hallway downstairs. Not every house in town has these things yet, but they're spreading rapidly as America's prosperity grows. Sarah, breakfast. Your mother calls from downstairs. You can hear the radio playing in the kitchen, a morning news program from Pittsburgh, the announcer's voice slightly tinny but clearly audible. The radio, not the automobile, sits at the heart of your family's modern life. I spent way too long researching early radio models for this. Did you know the first commercial radio station, KDKA in Pittsburgh, only started broadcasting in 1920? By 1925, America had over 500 stations, and radio was transforming from novelty to necessity. Downstairs, your family gathers around a proper dining table in a room dedicated just to eating. Another middle-class luxury. Your father sits with the newspaper propped against the sugar bowl. Your mother places a plate of eggs and bacon before you, and your younger brother fiddles with the radio dial, trying to improve reception. "Don't touch that," your father says without looking up from his paper. "I want to hear the market report." The radio on the sideboard is the pride of your household, a new Atwater Kent model with 5 tubes and a proper wooden cabinet. No more headphones or crystal sets. This is a genuine piece of furniture that delivers entertainment directly into your home. It cost nearly $80, 2 weeks of your father's salary, but he considers it an investment, not a luxury. "There's a new Harold Lloyd picture at the Rialto tonight," your brother says, passing you the toast rack. "Can we go?" Movies, the other great mass media revolution, have already transformed from novelty to regular entertainment. Millerville has 2 movie theaters, the older Bijou and the newer, fancier Rialto, with actual upholstered seats and electric fans for summer cooling. "Test scores first," your mother answers, but her tone suggests permission is likely. Unlike earlier generations, your parents view commercial entertainment as normal, even beneficial. The motion picture industry has worked hard to shed its slightly disreputable early image, promoting films as educational and wholesome family entertainment. Your father lowers his paper. "Says here Coolidge is speaking on the radio tonight. National hookup." He says this with genuine wonder. The president's voice coming directly into your living room. The miracle hasn't grown stale yet. So for context, President Coolidge was nicknamed Silent Cal because he was so reserved. But even this quiet president embraced radio immediately. Like most politicians, he recognized its power to bypass newspapers and speak directly to voters. Radio made national politics immediate and personal in ways print never could. After breakfast, you head downtown with your brother to run errands before school. Main Street bustles with morning activity. Mr. Peterson unlocking his pharmacy, Mrs. Winters sweeping the sidewalk in front of her millinery shop, the mailman delivering packages to the general store. Unlike the anonymous city or the isolated farm, small-town life means being known. "Morning, Sarah," calls Mr. Peterson. "Tell your mother her headache powder came in." 3 people greet you by name before you reach the corner. This interconnectedness defines small-town existence, comforting or stifling, depending on your perspective. You pass the Rialto Theatre, where the marquee indeed advertises Harold Lloyd in The Freshman. A colourful poster shows the bespectacled comedian hanging from a clock face. Movie marketing is sophisticated already, with nationwide advertising campaigns, fan magazines, and merchandise. The movie star system is in full flower, creating the first modern celebrities known as intimately as family members, despite never being met in person. "Think Clara Bow will ever come to Millerville?" your brother asks, staring at another poster showing the famous It Girl in a revealing costume. "Dream on," you laugh. Small towns might get the same movies as big cities, but actual movie stars exist in another universe. At the newsstand, you spend your allowance on the latest issue of Photoplay, a movie magazine promising exclusive interviews with the stars. Inside are glossy photos of the famous faces you and millions of other Americans collectively adore: Chaplin, Fairbanks, Pickford, Swanson. Their hairstyles will be copied, their clothing imitated, their romances analysed by people who've never been to Hollywood and never will go. The theatre manager passes by, tips his hat. Coming tonight? Lloyd's a scream in this one. Hope to, Mr. Daniels, you answer, if homework allows. He winks. Special display in the lobby. Actual football from the movie. Studio sent it as promotion. This national marketing for local consumption represents the new media landscape. Products, promotions, and publicity flow from centres of production to the smallest towns, creating shared cultural touchstones. A joke told in a Harold Lloyd film will be repeated in schoolyards from Maine to California. Americans increasingly laugh at the same things, cry at the same stories, worry about the same news. School occupies the middle of your day, a consolidated high school serving Millerville and surrounding farms. Unlike your parents' one-room schoolhouse education, yours features specialized teachers, a science laboratory, even a small gymnasium. Education is changing too, becoming more standardized across America as mass media and improved transportation connect previously isolated systems. But it's after school that the real center of teenage social life in 1925 emerges: Miller's drugstore, with its soda fountain, booths, and most importantly, its Victrola player. Miller's is where Millerville's youth gather to socialize in ways their parents never experienced. 2 cherry phosphates, your friend Helen orders at the counter. The soda jerk, a college boy home for the summer, nods knowingly. Heard the new Armstrong record? He asks, gesturing to the stack of records beside the Victrola. Hot stuff. The store has a commercial arrangement with Victor Records. They sell records, but also play them as promotion. For the price of a soda, teens can listen to the latest jazz and dance music, much to the concern of some parents who view jazz as dangerously sensual and modern. My dad says jazz is causing moral decay, Helen sighs, rolling her eyes. Put it on. The music that fills the drugstore would shock earlier generations with its syncopated rhythms and improvisational style, but to you and your friends, it's simply the soundtrack of youth. Louis Armstrong's trumpet soars above the scratchy recording, creating a sound unlike anything your parents grew up hearing. Teenage culture in the 1920s was becoming distinct for the first time, shaped by commercial entertainment rather than traditional community values. Parents worried while teenagers embraced new music, new dances, new fashions spread by mass media. "Did you hear last night's Collier's Hour?" asks Edward, sliding into your booth uninvited. "They had that detective story writer. What's his name?" "Dashiell Hammett," supplies Helen, who devours detective stories. Radio created shared national experiences impossible in previous eras. The next day after a popular program, Americans everywhere discussed the same episodes, quoted the same lines, laughed at the same jokes. Regional isolation began dissolving in a sea of standardized entertainment. "My folks got a new radiola," Edward boasts. 6 tubes. Dad let me stay up for the fight broadcast from New York. Heard Dempsey get knocked out in real time. Sports broadcasting nationalized athletics, turning local teams into national obsessions and athletes into celebrities. Before radio, you might read about a boxing match the next day. Now you could hear it as it happened, the announcer's excitement making you feel present at events occurring hundreds of miles away. The soda jerk changes the record, putting on a Paul Whiteman dance tune. "Anyone going to the dance at the Grange Saturday?" he asks. Wouldn't miss it, Helen answers. Sarah's teaching me the Charleston. The boy from the pharmacy looks at you and goes, "You know the Charleston? For real?" Because even in small towns, the dance crazes that swept urban areas eventually arrived, sometimes months after they'd already peaked in New York or Chicago, but they arrived nonetheless, carried by movies, magazines, phonograph records, and travelers. You demonstrate a few Charleston steps beside the booth, exaggerating the swinging arms and twisted knees that scandalize parents and delight teens. The dance's energetic abandon perfectly captures the spirit of the decade, modern, rebellious, carefree. As afternoon stretches toward evening, you head home for dinner, stopping by the hardware store to walk home with your father. The store itself is another symbol of changing times. Traditional tools still occupy prominent space, but new sections cater to automobile owners, radio enthusiasts, and home modernization. "Look what just came in," your father says proudly, showing you a display of electric toasters. Future of home appliances right there. Consumer culture was exploding in the 1920s as electrification spread and mass production made previously luxury items affordable to the middle class. Advertising in magazines, newspapers, and radio created desire for products people hadn't known they needed. The modern consumer was being born. Dinner at home follows middle-class rituals unchanged for decades. Proper place settings, serving dishes passed around the table, conversation about the day's events. But tonight's normalcy is interrupted by the radio in the living room. "Hurry up," your father urges, checking his pocket watch. "President speaking in 15 minutes. National broadcast." After dishes are cleared, your family settles in the living room, father in his armchair directly facing the radio, mother in her rocker with mending, you and your brother on the sofa. The radio glows warmly as tubes heat up, emitting a soft hum before voices emerge. This is Graham McNamee speaking to you from Washington, D.C., where President Coolidge will address the nation on the state of the economy. Your father shushes everyone, though no one's speaking. The room falls silent as the president's distinctive New England accent fills your Pennsylvania living room. The moment feels profound. The nation's leader speaking simultaneously to millions of citizens in their private homes. Imagine going from a world where you might never hear the president speak unless he visited your town to one where his voice regularly entered your living room. The psychological impact was enormous. Political leadership became both more intimate and more polished as radio required new skills from public figures. After the speech, your family discusses the president's points about the booming economy. Your father, a Republican like most small business managers, approves of Coolidge's pro-business stance. Your mother, with more progressive leanings, has reservations. What matters isn't their disagreement, but that they both heard exactly the same speech at exactly the same time as millions of other Americans. A shared national moment impossible before radio. "Can we go to the movies now?" your brother asks as the post-speech analysis drones on. Your father checks his watch. 8 o'clock showing, be home by 10. The walk to the Rialto takes you down Main Street, transformed by evening. Shop windows glow with electric lights. Cars line the curb outside the hotel where travelling salesmen stay. The ice cream parlour bustles with couples and families enjoying an evening treat. The movie theatre marquee shines like a beacon, bulbs outlining The Freshman in electric glory. Outside, a crowd gathers. Farm families in town for the evening, factory workers still in work clothes, high school students giggling in groups, young couples using the darkened theatre for modest courtship. Inside, the lobby dazzles with gilt paint, patterned carpet, and a refreshment stand selling candy and popcorn. Movie theatres were designed as palaces of escape, their ornate architecture offering ordinary people a taste of luxury for the price of admission. 25 cents for adults, 15 for children. The football from the film sits in a glass case surrounded by promotional stills showing Harold Lloyd in various comic predicaments. A cardboard cutout of the star grins manically as patrons pose beside it for fun. 2, please, you tell the ticket seller, sliding coins across the counter. Your weekly allowance disappears, but the expense seems worthwhile for 2 hours of entertainment more elaborate than anything previous generations could imagine. The theatre interior impresses with red velvet curtains covering the screen, painted ceiling murals depicting classical scenes, and even small electric lights lining the aisles. No modern multiplex can match the opulent movie palaces of the 1920s, designed to transport ordinary people into worlds of fantasy before the film even began. As the lights dim, an organist begins playing at the theatre's prized Wurlitzer. Unlike metropolitan movie palaces with full orchestras, small-town theatres made do with a single musician. Still, the organ's rich tones fill the space, setting the mood for entertainment. First comes a newsreel showing world events. The Prince of Wales touring Africa, floods in Mississippi, a fashion show in Paris. For many in the audience, especially from outlying farms, these newsreels provide their only visual connection to world events. Before television, this was video journalism, powerfully immediate compared to newspaper accounts. Next, a cartoon featuring Felix the cat bounces across the screen, eliciting laughs from children and adults alike. Animation was already sophisticated by 1925, with established characters and consistent styles that audiences recognized and anticipated. Finally, the main feature begins. Silent, of course. The jazz singer with synchronized sound is still 2 years away. Title cards provide dialogue and narration, but the storytelling is primarily visual, relying on exaggerated expressions and physical comedy that requires no translation. The audience reacts as one, laughing, gasping, occasionally applauding particularly impressive stunts. This collective experience represents another way mass media united Americans. Millions would see this exact film, react to the same moments, discuss the same scenes afterward. You lose yourself in the story, worries temporarily forgotten in the flickering images. This escapism is precisely what made movies so popular during economic hardship or social change. For the price of admission, anyone could step into different lives, different worlds. Afterward, walking home through quiet streets, you and your brother quote favourite scenes and imitate Lloyd's pratfalls. The shared experience creates immediate connection, common reference points in an increasingly standardized national culture. At home, your parents are listening to a dance orchestra program on the radio, the music softly filling the house. Your mother looks up from her book. Good picture? Hilarious, your brother answers, launching into a detailed description of the football game scene. You head upstairs to your room, mind still full of movie images. Before bed, you tune your crystal radio set with headphones, carefully adjusting the wire on the crystal to catch distant stations. Unlike the family's console radio downstairs, this private listening device lets you explore the airwaves independently. Past your bedtime, headphones on, you listen to jazz from Pittsburgh, a hotel orchestra from Cleveland, fragments of voices from Chicago fading in and out with atmospheric conditions. The radio collapses distance in the darkness, bringing the wider world to your small-town bedroom. Lying in bed, you consider how different your life is from your parents' adolescence just 20 years earlier. They grew up in relative isolation, their entertainment locally produced, their horizons limited by physical distance. You inhabit a world where national media create shared experiences across thousands of miles, where movie stars and radio personalities feel like familiar friends, where cultural trends spread coast to coast in weeks instead of years, or not at all. Your room contains the evidence of this transformation. Movie magazines, phonograph records, radio equipment, each represents threads connecting you to a wider America, weaving previously separate communities into a more uniform national culture. The voices on your radio fade as stations sign off for the night. This is KDKA Pittsburgh signing off until 6 a.m. Good night and God bless America. In the silence that follows, you drift towards sleep, your imagination full of images from movies, your head still nodding to remembered jazz rhythms. Tomorrow will bring more local experiences, school, chores, face-to-face conversations with friends and neighbors. But increasingly, these local experiences exist within a framework of national media that shapes expectations, creates shared references, and connects even the smallest towns to American culture at large. And as radio signals cross your sleeping town, carrying music, news, and stories to thousands of other communities, America becomes more itself, diverse yet increasingly unified, traditional yet embracing modernity, physically dispersed yet culturally connected in ways no previous generation could have imagined. We've seen working-class struggles in New York, rural transformation in Iowa, and middle-class life in small-town Pennsylvania. But to understand the full spectrum of 1920s America, we need to step into another world entirely, the rarefied air of wealth during the decade that birthed the term, "the rich get richer." It's 1927 now, and you're waking up in a bedroom larger than some entire tenement apartments. Sunlight filters through silk curtains onto a bed that cost more than a Model T Ford. You're in Lake Forest, Illinois, one of America's wealthiest suburbs, situated on Lake Michigan just north of Chicago. This isn't just wealth, it's American aristocracy. Your eyes open to a room designed by a prominent New York decorator. Hand-painted Chinese wallpaper covers walls hung with original oil paintings. A Persian carpet cushions your feet when you slide from the bed. The sheets are Egyptian cotton, changed daily by housemaids you rarely see. The room is warm despite the winter chill outside. Central heating, thermostatically controlled, keeps the entire 24-room mansion at a perfect 72 degrees. Through large windows, you can see snow dusting the formal gardens that stretch toward the lake. The grounds cover 12 acres, maintained by a staff of 6 gardeners year-round. Unlike the tenement dweller, the farmer, or the small-town teen, your morning doesn't begin with immediate chores or work preparation. Instead, a discreet knock at the door signals your lady's maid, Louise, arriving with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Miss Catherine," she says, setting the silver tray on a bedside table. "Mrs. Harrington requests your presence at 11 for the charity committee meeting." You nod sleepily, reaching for the delicate porcelain cup filled with perfectly brewed coffee. Louise moves efficiently around the room, opening curtains wider, laying out clothes for the day, gathering yesterday's discarded silk stockings for laundering. "The blue Chanel or the green Patou for luncheon?" she asks, holding up 2 dresses that each cost more than 6 months' salary for most Americans. "The blue, I think," you answer. "Is father at breakfast?" Mr. Harrington left for Chicago on the 7:30 train, Louise informs you. "He mentioned a board meeting at the bank. I spent hours researching how the ultra-wealthy lived in the 1920s. Think real-life Great Gatsby stuff. The income gap was staggering. The top 1% owned about 40% of all wealth, and they weren't shy about showing it." Louise draws your bath in a bathroom that would astound most Americans. Marble floors, heated from below, a sunken tub large enough for 2, gold-plated fixtures, and a shower with multiple heads. Still a rarity even in wealthy homes. Indoor plumbing had been around for decades, but this level of bathroom luxury was unprecedented. As you soak in scented water, you contemplate your day, charity committee in the morning, luncheon with mother's friends, tennis lesson if weather permits, the family has private indoor courts, then dinner with potential suitors your parents have approved. At 20, you're already slightly behind the marriage curve for your social set. Meanwhile, 3 floors below in the servants' wing, another day has been underway for hours. The Harrington household employs 18 domestic staff: butler, housekeeper, cook, kitchen maids, housemaids, footman, chauffeur, ladies' maids, and miscellaneous others. They rose before dawn to prepare the house and family for another day of conspicuous leisure. In the vast kitchen, Mrs. Collins, the cook, directs 2 kitchen maids in dinner preparations that will take all day. The fish must be absolutely fresh, she insists to a delivery boy from Chicago's finest market. Mr. Harrington can tell the difference. The kitchen is industrial-sized but state-of-the-art with electric refrigeration, not just an icebox, multiple ovens, a dedicated pastry area, and specially designed storage for the family's extensive collection of serving pieces and china. Different sets of dishes for different meals and occasions mean the kitchen contains more plates than some department stores. James, the butler, confers with Mrs. Collins about wine selections for dinner. Mr. Harrington wants the 21 Bordeaux with the main course, he says. Despite prohibition being the law of the land, fine wine flows freely in wealthy households. The very rich were effectively exempt from liquor laws that criminalized average Americans. The Harrington family never even pretended to obey prohibition. Their wine cellar, hidden behind a false wall, a minimal concession to legality, contains vintages worth more than most Americans earn in years. When they entertain, champagne flows as though the 18th Amendment never passed. The florist called, Mrs. Mitchell, the housekeeper, tells James. The orchids for tonight's centerpiece are delayed. Shall I have them use roses instead? James looks pained. Mrs. Harrington specifically requested orchids to complement the new Limoges service. This level of detail in household management wasn't unusual for America's upper class. Every aspect of domestic life was curated, from fresh flowers daily to perfectly pressed linens to seasonally rotated art and furnishings. The butler checks his watch, a solid gold timepiece gifted by Mr. Harrington last Christmas. The silver still needs polishing for tonight. Have Thomas and William see to it immediately. While the household staff rush to prepare for an intimate dinner party, only 16 guests tonight, practically casual by Harrington standards, you've finished your bath. Louise helps you dress in layers typical for wealthy women: silk undergarments, lightweight corset, fashion still demanded certain silhouettes, silk stockings held by garters, slip, and finally the blue Chanel day dress. Your closet would stagger most Americans. Dozens of dresses, suits, coats, and specialized outfits for every conceivable activity from riding to tennis to yachting. The concept of appropriate dress reaches religious intensity among the wealthy. Wearing evening clothes before 6 or country clothes in town would cause more scandal than political radicalism. Mrs. Harrington purchased tickets for the Symphony Friday, Louise mentions, while styling your hair. She asked me to remind you that the abbot's son will be joining your box. Matchmaking remains a primary maternal occupation even in 1927. Despite the decade's reputation for liberation, upper-class marriage still functions partially as business merger and social positioning. The Abbotts own railroads. Your father owns banks. The match makes financial sense. I read this wild account from a society columnist who described a debutante ball where they released live birds painted gold as decoration, just set them loose inside a ballroom. The things wealth made seem reasonable were truly bizarre. Downstairs, you find your mother in the morning room, a sunny space overlooking winter gardens. Eleanor Harrington, at 45, remains a stunning woman, maintained by rigorous beauty regimens, regular spa visits, and the confident posture of someone who has never worried about money. "Catherine, darling," she greets you, barely looking up from correspondence she's reviewing. "The Blakely girl is engaged. Third this season. We really must focus on your prospects." Your mother writes with a gold fountain pen on personalized stationery. Her morning activity includes answering invitations, directing household matters, and managing her extensive social obligations. Though she doesn't work in any traditional sense, her role maintaining family status through social connections is taken extremely seriously. "The charity committee meets at 11, she continues. "We're finalizing plans for the Children's Hospital benefit. I've committed us to purchasing 2 tables at $500 each." The irony of spending lavishly on charity events wasn't lost on everyone. One socialite supposedly said, "We spent $15,000 on a party to raise $10,000 for the poor, but the party was so lovely." A housemaid appears silently with fresh coffee. Your mother continues reviewing her social calendar without acknowledging the servant's presence. This invisibility of staff represents another aspect of wealthy life. Domestic workers exist in a parallel universe, physically present but socially non-existent unless needed. "The Morgans have invited us to Palm Beach next month," your mother says. "I've instructed Louise to begin packing your resort clothes. We'll take the private car on the 20th. The private car refers to the family's railroad car, attached to regular trains, but offering completely private accommodations. Commercial air travel barely exists in 1927, so wealthy families travel by private railcar, essentially mobile luxury apartments coupled to regular trains. Your father enters, having returned unexpectedly from Chicago. Howard Harrington made his first million before 30, multiplied it through banking, and now at 50 serves on numerous corporate boards while managing family investments. His tailored suit, handmade shoes, and perfectly trimmed mustache project success and authority. "Market's up again," he announces, accepting coffee from the hovering maid. "Those aircraft manufacturers I mentioned, stock jumped 12 points yesterday." The stock market dominates wealthy conversation in 1927. The unprecedented bull market seems unstoppable, creating paper millionaires daily. Investment tips exchange like currency at dinner parties and golf clubs. "Should we buy more?" your mother asks, revealing that even society women follow financial markets closely. "Already instructed Harrison to purchase another 1,000 shares, your father replies. "This boom has legs." Of course, with hindsight, we know the crash lurks just 2 years away, but in 1927, optimism borders on delusion among the investing class. The market can only go up. Prosperity will never end. America has entered a permanent plateau of prosperity, as many economists claimed. After breakfast, you join your mother in the library where the charity committee, 8 women from prominent Chicago families, gathers to plan a hospital benefit expected to raise $50,000. The meeting perfectly encapsulates upper-class women's lives, genuine charitable impulses, filtered through social competition and status display. "The Palmers have donated an automobile as the grand prize," announces Mrs. Winthrop, committee chair. "We must ensure ticket prices are high enough to maintain exclusivity." The women discuss dinner menus, orchestras, table arrangements, and decorations with the seriousness of military strategists. While they genuinely want to support the Children's Hospital, the event's success will be measured equally by its social prestige and press coverage. Catherine, Mrs. Winthrop addresses you. We'd like you to chair the junior committee. Get those eligible bachelors to open their wallets. This represents your growing social responsibility. Young people of your class must begin demonstrating philanthropic leadership. It's part of the unwritten curriculum of wealth. After the committee departs, you have a few hours before luncheon. Unlike most Americans, your time is largely discretionary. You spend it practicing piano on the Steinway Grand in the music room, one of many accomplishments expected of wealthy young women. Though the jazz age celebrates more liberated female behavior, traditional expectations still govern upper-class womanhood. The society lady at the piano goes, "Oh, I don't work. I merely oversee the staff, manage social engagements, run 3 charity boards, speak 3 languages, and can play Chopin from memory." Because wealthy women's labor was never called work, even when it was complex and demanding. At 1 o'clock, your mother's luncheon guests arrive. 6 women from prominent Chicago families. The dining room gleams with silver and crystal for what's considered an informal meal, though it would outshine most Americans' wedding dinners. Housemaids in black uniforms with white aprons serve course after course while remaining functionally invisible to the diners. Conversation touches on mutual friends, upcoming social events, European travel plans, and eventually current events. Even here, the new mass media makes its presence felt. "Did you hear President Coolidge on the radio last night?" asks Mrs. Forrester, whose husband owns a department store. "Harold says his business policies are precisely what America needs." "The Lindbergh flight is all anyone discusses in New York," contributes Mrs. Astor, recently returned from Manhattan. "They're planning a ticker tape parade when he returns." Charles Lindbergh's solo flight across the Atlantic in May 1927 represents another media milestone, the first global celebrity created entirely through mass communication. His handsome face appears everywhere, from newspapers to magazine covers to movie newsreels. The flight itself lasted 33 hours, but the media sensation continues months later. "Catherine, didn't you meet the Lindbergh boy at the Wetmore party last year?" your mother asks, creating a social connection to the news sensation. "Briefly," you acknowledge, though the encounter was merely a passing introduction at a crowded event. Still, social capital comes from proximity to fame and prominence. After luncheon, you have your tennis lesson in the family's indoor court, followed by a massage from the personal masseuse who visits twice weekly. Physical fitness and beauty maintenance occupy significant time for wealthy women, though the purpose remains attractiveness rather than health. As evening approaches, Louise helps you prepare for dinner. This involves another bath, complete hair restyling, and changing into formal evening wear. A beaded lanvin gown imported from Paris, satin evening slippers, family jewelry from the safe. Mr. Abbott's son will be seated beside you, Louise mentions while fastening a pearl necklace worth more than her lifetime earnings. Mrs. Harrington suggested the emerald earrings as well. Downstairs, the transformation is complete. The dining room now glows with candelabra, fine china, and crystal. Footmen in formal livery stand ready behind each chair. James supervises with eagle-eyed attention to detail. Fresh flowers perfume the air. The setting could be a royal palace rather than a private home. Guests arrive in chauffeur-driven luxury automobiles, Packards, Cadillacs, Rolls-Royces. The women drip with jewels, the men wear impeccably tailored evening clothes. Air kisses exchange, cocktails circulate, prohibition remains an inconvenience rather than an obstacle. And conversation bubbles with practiced charm. Mr. Abbott's son, Robert, does indeed sit beside you at dinner, a Yale graduate with perfect manners and practiced conversation. His family's railroad fortune would combine nicely with your banking background. The matchmaking is obvious, but conducted with sufficient subtlety to maintain dignity. Do you enjoy the symphony, Miss Harrington? He inquires over soup served in antique Sèvres porcelain bowls. Particularly Debussy, you reply with appropriate cultural knowledge, though I found the Stravinsky piece last season quite stimulating. The dinner conversation floats through safe topics: music, theatre, travel, mutual acquaintances. Politics rarely intrudes in mixed company, though most present share conservative Republican views aligned with their financial interests. Labour unrest, immigration concerns, and prohibition enforcement affect their businesses but not their daily lives. Wine flows freely despite federal law, served from crystal decanters rather than original bottles, a minimal nod to illegality. The meal stretches to 7 courses, each more elaborate than the last, representing days of kitchen preparation for a 3-hour dining experience. After dinner, the men briefly separate for cigars and port while the women retire to the drawing room. This Victorian custom persists in upper-class households despite the decade's more relaxed social standards. When the groups rejoin, entertainment follows. A famous pianist has been engaged to play for the intimate gathering. By midnight, the party concludes. Chauffeurs return from their waiting positions to collect guests. You bid good night to Robert Abbott with appropriate restraint, though his invitation to join his family's box at the races next weekend suggests mutual interest. As the last guests depart, the household staff springs into action again. Despite the late hour, silver must be washed and counted, china returned to storage, linens laundered, floors cleaned. For the wealthy, the day ends with rest. For those who maintain their lifestyle, hours of work remain. In your room, Louise helps you undress, removing jewellery to the safe, hanging the beaded gown carefully, untangling your hair from diamond clips. The day's social performance complete, you can finally relax. Will there be anything else, Miss Catherine? Louise asks, folding your evening gloves. No thank you, Louise. Good night. Alone finally, you slip between fresh sheets changed during dinner. Your windows offer a view of Lake Michigan, moonlight silvering the winter waves. In the distance, Chicago glows with electric light, the city that generates your family's fortune. Before sleep claims you, you consider your position, privileged beyond most Americans' imagination, insulated from hardship by wealth accumulated across generations, expected to maintain and expand that privilege through strategic marriage and social compliance. The freedom of the Jazz Age touches even gilded cages, but expectations remain. And as you drift towards sleep in your mansion bedroom, other Americans do the same in tenements, farmhouses, and small-town homes. The single nation contains these parallel worlds, connected increasingly by mass media, but separated by wealth disparities that the Roaring Twenties has only widened. Let's hit the road. It's 1928, and America is on the move like never before. While the wealthy enjoy their mansions and the middle class embraces radio culture, the entire nation is being physically rewired by a transportation revolution that's shrinking distances and expanding horizons. You're waking up in a Pullman sleeping compartment on the 20th Century Limited, the most famous passenger train in America, currently speeding through the night somewhere in Ohio. The gentle rocking of the rail car and the rhythmic clickety-clack of wheels on track seeps into your dreams before your eyes open. Your narrow berth is surprisingly comfortable. The Pullman Company has perfected the art of luxury in minimal space. Heavy green curtains separate you from the aisle where other passengers sleep in similar compartments. Outside your window, darkness still covers the landscape, occasionally broken by the lights of small towns flashing past at 80 miles per hour. The pocket watch on your small fold-down table shows 5:30 a.m. You're a journalist for Collier's magazine, working on a special feature, America in Motion, How Transportation is Changing the Nation. Your editor has given you an enviable assignment: travel coast to coast using every modern transportation method available in 1928, documenting how mobility is transforming the country. You started in New York yesterday, boarding this famous train at Grand Central Terminal. The 20th Century Limited isn't just transportation, it's a rolling legend. The boarding process alone was theatrical. Red carpets literally rolled out for passengers, the origin of the phrase red carpet treatment. Porters in crisp uniforms handling luggage, and the train's gleaming, streamlined exterior promising speed and luxury. I spent weeks researching the legendary trains of this era. The 20th Century Limited was basically a 5-star hotel on wheels, complete with barbers, manicurists, stenographers, and gourmet dining. The ultimate status symbol wasn't just getting there, it was how you travelled. The gentle knock on your compartment door signals your porter, George. "Good morning, sir. We'll be arriving in Chicago in approximately 2 hours. Would you care for coffee while you dress?" George, like all Pullman porters, is black. The Pullman Company is the largest single employer of African Americans in the country. Though the work involves catering to wealthy white travelers' every need for minimal wages, supplemented by tips. Despite these conditions, Pullman jobs remain coveted positions within the limited opportunities available to black workers in 1928. "Coffee would be wonderful, George. Thank you." As George disappears to fetch your coffee, you begin the somewhat complicated process of preparing for the day in a moving train compartment the size of a closet. Your berth converts ingeniously from bed to sitting room, with hidden compartments for wash basin, mirror, and storage. The engineering that went into these spaces reflects America's growing obsession with efficiency and modern design. When George returns with coffee in a heavy white china cup emblazoned with the railroad's logo, you ask him about his work. "Been with Pullman 15 years now, sir," he tells you, efficiently transforming your bed into a daytime sitting arrangement. "This route Chicago to New York and back twice weekly. That's a lot of miles," you observe. George smiles politely. "More than most folks see in a lifetime. Company estimates I've traveled over 1 million miles." And there it is, the new reality of 1928 America. A porter from the south side of Chicago has seen more of the country than most Americans ever will, crossing state lines as routinely as others cross town. The mobility revolution isn't just physical, it's psychological, expanding mental horizons alongside geographical ones. By the time you're dressed and have finished your coffee, dawn breaks across the Ohio farmlands, speeding past your window. You make your way to the dining car for breakfast, walking through swaying corridors that connect the train's various cars: sleepers, lounge car, observation car, and the elegant dining car where white-jacketed waiters serve meals on fine china. The dining car tables are set with fresh flowers, silver service, and linen napkins. The menu offers everything from grapefruit to grilled steaks. You order eggs Benedict and more coffee, settling in to observe your fellow travelers. Two businessmen discuss market prospects across the aisle. A wealthy family with young children occupies another table, the children surprisingly well-behaved in their travelling clothes. A young honeymoon couple sits awkwardly, still adjusting to public couplehood. Together, they represent the upper middle class and wealthy who can afford the 20th century's premium fare. $82.90 one-way from New York to Chicago in 1928, equivalent to over $1,300 today. Imagine dropping $1,300 for a single one-way train ticket. That's first-class Pullman service for you. Meanwhile, most Americans traveling the same route would be sitting upright in coach cars for the entire journey at a fraction of the cost. As breakfast concludes, the train begins slowing for its approach to Chicago. Outside the window, the landscape transforms from rural to industrial. Factories, stockyards, and rail yards sprawling across the flat terrain surrounding America's second city. The smell of the famous, or infamous, Chicago stockyards reaches even into the sealed train, a powerful combination of livestock, smoke, and industry that prompts some passengers to discreetly press handkerchiefs to noses. The train pulls into Chicago's LaSalle Street station exactly on schedule at 8:30 a.m., a point of pride for the New York Central Railroad. The 20th Century Limited's reputation rests on its punctuality as much as its luxury. George helps with your luggage, receiving a generous tip that prompts a genuine smile replacing his professional one. Enjoy Chicago, sir. Safe travels onward. You've arranged a busy itinerary in Chicago, interviews with transportation officials about the city's role as America's railroad hub, visits to automotive plants, and most excitingly, a trip to Chicago's new municipal airport. But first, you need to take in the city itself. Stepping outside LaSalle Street Station into downtown Chicago delivers an immediate sensory jolt. The noise hits first, construction everywhere, automobiles honking, elevated trains rumbling overhead, newsboys shouting headlines, street vendors calling their wares. The smell follows, a complex urban bouquet of exhaust fumes, industrial smoke, restaurant kitchens, and humanity packed densely together. Chicago in 1928 pulsates with energy and ambition. New skyscrapers rise seemingly weekly. The Michigan Avenue Bridge, completed just a few years earlier, has transformed the North Side into a development boom. Despite prohibition, speakeasies operate openly, many controlled by Al Capone's organization, currently at the height of its power. You hail a yellow cab, another symbol of America's transportation revolution. Standardized taxi services are relatively new, made possible by affordable automobiles and improved urban roads. Your driver, a talkative Italian immigrant, provides unsolicited commentary on everything from Chicago politics, crooked as they come, to baseball, Cubs looking good this year, as he navigates traffic to your hotel. The Drake Hotel represents Chicago's ambitions for world-class status. 16 stories of luxury overlooking Lake Michigan, its lobby a marble and gilt showcase of prosperity. After checking in and freshening up, you head to your first appointment at the headquarters of the Illinois Highway Commission. The commissioner meets you in an office with large maps covering the walls, the planned highway network spreading across the state like arteries and veins. 5 years ago, he tells you, tracing routes with his finger, you couldn't drive from Chicago to Springfield without breaking an axle or getting stuck in mud. Now we've got concrete highways connecting every major city in the state. The numbers he shares astound you. Illinois alone has paved over 5,000 miles of highways in the past decade. Nationwide, the federal government has funded thousands more through matching programs with states. America is literally paving its way into the future. Detroit to Chicago used to be a 3-day drive if weather was good, the commissioner continues. Now it's 6 hours on concrete all the way. This radical compression of time and space changes everything, where people can live, work, shop, and vacation. The psychological map of America is being redrawn around drive times rather than miles. Your next stop proves this point dramatically. Chicago's municipal airport, a dusty field on the city's southwest side that hardly matches its grand name. Yet this primitive facility handles growing passenger traffic between Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and other Midwestern cities. The airport manager laughs when you ask about passenger amenities. Amenities? We've got a bench and a telephone. Most folks are just happy to survive the flight. Early commercial aviation was wildly uncomfortable and unreliable. No pressurized cabins meant flying at low altitudes through every bump of turbulence. Planes weren't powerful enough to climb over bad weather, so they flew through it, or more often got grounded by it. Nevertheless, you've arranged passage on a Ford Tri-Motor operated by National Air Transport, a predecessor of United Airlines, departing for Kansas City that afternoon. The fare costs roughly 4 times what a train ticket would, but saves an entire day of travel time. The premium paid for speed. At the airfield, the Ford Tri-Motor sits impressively, its corrugated metal skin gleaming in the afternoon sun. Nicknamed the Tin Goose, it represents the first generation of purpose-built commercial aircraft. With 3 engines for reliability and room for 10 passengers, plus crew, it symbolizes aviation's transition from daredevil stunt to practical transportation. Your fellow passengers are exclusively businessmen whose time is valuable enough to justify the expense, plus one nervous-looking woman travelling to her father's funeral, the urgency overcoming her obvious fear of flying, the pilot wearing the leather jacket and cap that are still part uniform, part romantic holdover from war flying, greets each passenger personally. Smooth flying today, folks. Little bumpy over the Mississippi, but we'll be in Kansas City by sunset. Inside, the aircraft is Spartan compared to train luxury. Wicker seats line both sides of a narrow cabin. Windows are small, there's no food service, no bathroom, and earplugs are distributed to combat the deafening engine noise that will make conversation impossible. The woman next to you grips her handbag tightly as engines start with an ear-splitting roar. First flight? You shout over the noise. She nods, white-knuckled. My husband says I'm crazy, says these contraptions drop from the sky regularly. She's not entirely wrong. Aviation safety standards are still developing. Crashes remain common enough that each safe landing feels somewhat miraculous. The takeoff is stomach-lurching, the plane bouncing along the grass airfield before reluctantly surrendering to flight. As Chicago recedes below, replaced by a patchwork quilt of farms and small towns, your seatmate gradually relaxes her death grip on her handbag. The flight is everything the pilot promised, generally smooth with stomach-dropping bumps over the Mississippi River Valley. Without cabin pressurization, you fly low enough to clearly see details of the landscape, cars moving along highways, trains snaking across plains, river barges hauling goods along waterways. The layered transportation network of 1928 America spreads beneath you like a living map. 3.5 hours later, compared to an overnight train journey, you land at Kansas City's airfield, another converted farm on the city's outskirts. Your seatmate sighs with relief, crossing herself before disembarking on visibly shaky legs. Next time, I'm taking the train, she declares. Slower, but the ground stays where God intended it. Kansas City serves as your gateway to experience another transportation revolution, the emerging culture of automobile tourism. You rent a Chevrolet touring car from Hertz, already establishing a national network of rental locations, and prepare for the next leg of your journey, driving west along the newly designated Route 66. The guy at the Hertz counter hands you the keys and goes, "Just had her serviced yesterday. Should make it to at least Tulsa before something falls off." And he's only half joking. Cars in 1928 required maintenance every few hundred miles. Long-distance driving meant being part mechanic or knowing where to find one fast. Before leaving Kansas City the next morning, you visit a store that didn't exist a decade earlier, an outfitter specializing in automobile tourism equipment. They sell specialized luggage designed to strap onto running boards, folding chairs and tables for roadside picnics. canvas water bags to hang from the radiator cap. Evaporation keeps the water cool, and detailed road maps published by oil companies as marketing tools. The store manager explains the essentials for long-distance automobile travel. Spare tubes and patch kits, obviously. Fan belt, extra oil, compass, flashlight, tow rope, cash for when you need a farmer to pull you out of mud. This preparation underscores an important reality. Driving across America in 1928 still requires planning akin to wilderness expedition. Gas stations exist primarily in towns. Rural breakdowns might mean hours or days waiting for parts. Many roads remain unpaved despite recent infrastructure improvements. Nevertheless, you set out westward the next morning, joining a growing tribe of automobile tourists discovering America through windshields. Route 66, only recently designated and still partially unpaved, stretches ahead toward the Pacific, a concrete and gravel artery pumping travelers through America's heartland. The first day's drive from Kansas City takes you through western Missouri and into Oklahoma. The landscape unfolds at automobile pace, faster than horse travel, but slow enough to absorb details that blur from train windows and disappear entirely from airplanes. Something new catches your eye every few miles. Roadside stands selling produce directly from farms, hand-painted signs advertising tourist cabins, forerunners of motels, and perhaps most significantly, filling stations evolving from simple pumps into service complexes, with restaurants and souvenir shops attached. Near Claremore, Oklahoma, you stop at one such establishment, Red's Filling Station and Cafe, where an entrepreneurial owner has combined gas pumps, a repair garage, a small lunch counter, and tourist cabins into a roadside empire. Red himself, a sunburned man with hands permanently stained with grease, fills your tank while sharing his business philosophy. Used to just pump gas, then realized folks driving through need food, then realized they need sleep. Pretty soon I'll add a swimming pool and call it a resort. He's joking, but his business evolution traces the rapid development of roadside America, an entirely new commercial landscape growing along highways to serve automotive travelers. Companies like Howard Johnson's are already standardizing this roadside experience, offering consistent food and lodging that will eventually replace local establishments like Red's. Inside the cafe, you enjoy a surprisingly good chicken dinner while interviewing fellow road travelers, a family relocating from Arkansas to California, a traveling salesman whose territory covers 4 states, a young couple on honeymoon. Each represents a different aspect of America's new mobility. Used to take 3 weeks to move household goods by train, explains the relocating father. Now we've got everything we own in the car and trailer, and we'll be in California in 8 days if the roads stay good. The traveling salesman interjects, 5 years ago, I could only cover my territory every 2 months by train. Now I hit every customer monthly by car, changed everything about my business. That night, you experience another automotive age innovation, the tourist cabin. For 50 cents, Red provides a simple one-room structure with bed, chair, and washstand. It's basic but clean and represents an important transition in American travel accommodation, the gap between formal hotels and informal camping that will eventually evolve into the motel industry. Morning brings continuation of your westward journey through Oklahoma's dusty landscape. The roads deteriorate as you move further from major cities, with sections of Route 66 still under construction. Detours send you along unmarked country roads where wrong turns add hours to your journey. By late afternoon, you're lost somewhere in western Oklahoma, low on gas, with storm clouds threatening on the horizon. The romance of road travel suddenly reveals its flip side, vulnerability to elements, mechanical failure, and simple disorientation. Just as anxiety peaks, you crest a hill and spot a welcome sight. A small gas station with a single pump stands at a rural crossroads. The elderly attendant not only refills your tank but provides detailed directions back to Route 66, along with weather wisdom. "Storms coming sure as sunrise," he warns. "Best find proper shelter before dark. Reynolds has a hotel 15 miles west." You thank him and press onward, racing darkening skies. This experience, the mix of freedom and vulnerability, the reliance on strangers' kindness, the constant adjustment to changing conditions, defines early automotive tourism. Unlike train travel's predictability or air travel's speed, car journeys maintain intimate contact with landscape and community while introducing new uncertainties. As predicted, Reynolds proves to have a small hotel catering to automobile travelers. You secure a room just as rain begins hammering the town. From your window, you watch other travelers arrive in weather-beaten cars, seeking the same shelter from the prairie storm that now rattles windows and floods unpaved streets. The hotel lobby becomes an impromptu community as travelers share road conditions, mechanical tips, and destination recommendations. This information exchange represents another aspect of America's transportation revolution, the creation of shared knowledge networks among mobile citizens. Before published guides like Duncan Hines or AAA, travelers relied on this oral tradition of recommendations and warnings. Or "roads washed out south of Amarillo," warns a salesman who's just come eastward. "Take the northern route unless you've got chains and boards." "Avoid the hotel in Tucumcari," advises another. "Bedbugs the size of quarters." Through these conversations, a map of America forms that no official atlas shows. Subjective, constantly updated, focused on traveler needs rather than geographical accuracy. As the storm rages outside, you record observations in your notebook, already planning the magazine article taking shape in your mind. The transportation revolution isn't just about vehicles or infrastructure, it's about how Americans are reconceiving their relationship with distance, community, and possibility. Tomorrow you'll continue westward, eventually reaching California, where the final leg of your journey awaits, a coastal steamship back to New York via the Panama Canal. But tonight, listening to rain on the roof and fellow travelers' voices in the lobby below, you realize you're witnessing America literally in motion, a nation transforming itself through sheer mobility. It's October 1929. The Roaring Twenties are about to come to a screeching halt, though most Americans don't know it yet. Let's check in with the people we've met throughout our journey, because their stories, like the decade itself, are headed for an unexpected final chapter. In New York, the tenement apartment on the Lower East Side feels different now. There's a radio on a small table, second-hand but working fine. A few pieces of modest furniture have been added. The windows have proper curtains instead of hanging sheets, small improvements that represent nearly a decade of grinding work and careful saving. You wake up in the same small bedroom, but you don't share it anymore. Your brother moved out last year, married a girl from the neighborhood. They live 3 blocks away in a slightly better building. The bed still sags in the middle, but the sheets are newer, the blanket thicker. Winter's coming, and this year the drafts from the window seem less vicious. Your father is already gone, still working the night shift at the docks despite advancing age and worsening cough. Your mother moves around the kitchen preparing breakfast much as she did years ago, though her hair has more grey now, her movements a little slower. "Mr. Goldstein says they're hiring at the garment factory again," she mentions, placing a bowl of oatmeal before you. "Maybe Joseph can get his old job back." Joseph is your brother, laid off 3 weeks ago from the auto parts warehouse where he'd found better paying work after leaving the garment factory. It wasn't just him. Dozens of workers let go with vague explanations about inventory adjustment and temporary market conditions. Nobody's panicking yet. Layoffs happen, but there are whispers in the neighborhood, rumors of trouble at banks, businesses quietly cutting back. Nothing dramatic, just a slow tightening like the air gradually leaking from a balloon. Your mother glances at the newspaper on the table, frowning at headlines shouting about another day of heavy selling on Wall Street. Stock market news never concerned her before. The financial dealings of the wealthy existed in another universe from tenement life. But lately, those distant economic forces seem to be casting shadows even here. Mrs. Ricci's boy got sent home from the construction site yesterday, she says, worry creasing her brow. Whole project stopped. Something about financing. Your father studied this stuff in his night school business class. He brought home terms like margin buying and speculation that sounded like a foreign language to the rest of you. Playing with matches next to dynamite, he called it, shaking his head at newspaper stories of ordinary people pouring savings into stocks. In this neighborhood, nobody had money for stock speculation, but everyone has jobs connected to people who do. The garment factories make clothes for the wealthy. The construction sites build their offices. The warehouses store their goods. The invisible threads of economic connection run everywhere, even if most people don't see them yet. Let's travel west to Iowa, where the Miller family farm looks considerably different than when we last visited. The old barn has a new addition, built with prosperity from several good harvests. The farmhouse sports a fresh coat of white paint. Most noticeably, the Model T Ford has been replaced by a newer Chevrolet sedan, parked proudly beside a Fordson tractor that has revolutionized the farm's productivity. John Miller, the son we met earlier, is 25 now and effectively running the farm as his father gradually steps back. This morning finds him at the kitchen table with his own young wife, their newborn daughter sleeping in a handmade cradle nearby. Holcomb's foreclosing on the Peterson place, John tells his wife, concern evident in his voice. Bank called in their loan, third farm this month. The prosperity that transformed the Miller farm hasn't reached everyone equally. Farm prices have been declining since 1926, though the drop initially seemed temporary. Farmers who borrowed heavily to expand during good years now face impossible math. Loan payments calculated on $2 wheat when the market price has fallen below $1. John's father enters, moving stiffly from arthritis but still strong. Got the radio working again, he announces. Think we should sell some corn now or wait? The radio has become essential farm equipment, not for entertainment, but for crop prices broadcast daily from Chicago. Information is currency in modern farming, the difference between profit and loss often determined by timing rather than just production. John shakes his head. Prices keep dropping. Elevator man in town thinks they'll go lower still. This is the quiet crisis preceding the famous crash, an agricultural depression already squeezing rural America while cities still boom. The Millers are doing okay, having avoided excessive debt, but neighbors disappear monthly, farms consolidated by banks or larger operators. The family Chevrolet, once a symbol of rural America joining the transportation revolution, now serves practical emergency duty. Last week, John drove the Petersons and what possessions would fit to the train station. They're heading to California, joining an exodus that will become a flood in coming years. The farming family looks at their radio. The technology isn't just entertainment for them. It's literally financial survival, market reports, weather forecasts, crop predictions. This information flows instantly across America now, tying farmers in Iowa directly to trading floors in Chicago and New York. When those markets hiccup, the vibrations reach farmhouse tables with frightening speed. In Millerville, Pennsylvania, our small-town teenager Sarah is now a young woman of 22, recently graduated from normal school and teaching first grade in her hometown. Her childhood bedroom remains largely unchanged. Movie magazine clippings faded on the walls. Victrola gathering dust since radio became the preferred entertainment. She descends to breakfast, where her father reads the newspaper with unusual intensity. The headlines scream about market volatility. The Dow Jones down nearly 40 points yesterday, nearly 10% of its value, followed by partial recovery. "What does it mean?" Sarah asks, pouring coffee. Her father manages the hardware store, but like many middle-class Americans in the late 1920s, he's begun dabbling in stocks. Nothing major, a few $100s of carefully saved money invested on tips from customers and radio financial programs. "Probably nothing," he answers, but his tone lacks conviction. "Market goes up and down, always has." But the worry lines on his forehead tell a different story. The radio financial experts whose advice he trusted have been increasingly contradictory lately. Some urge buying this temporary dip, others suggest caution. Yesterday, a prominent banker on the Collier's Hour radio program counseled listeners to avoid panic while carefully avoiding specific predictions. After breakfast, Sarah walks to the school where she teaches. Main Street looks prosperous, shop fronts freshly painted, new automobiles angle parked along the curb, window displays showcasing the latest fashions from Philadelphia and New York. Nothing visible suggests impending crisis. Yet subtle signs appear if you know where to look. The furniture store window that promoted easy credit terms last month now advertises special cash discount. The jewelry store has quietly reduced inventory. The movie theatre has dropped prices for matinees. Small adjustments, nothing dramatic. At school, Sarah overhears two other teachers discussing their husbands' investments. Frank's broker says to buy more while prices are down, one says confidently. It's just the big financial interests trying to scare small investors out of the market. The other nods uncertainly. That's what Harry thought too, but his cousin in New York says something's really wrong this time. These conversations repeat across America that October, uncertainty masked with bravado, financial experts contradicting each other, ordinary Americans trying to decipher complex market movements with limited information. The interconnected media landscape that spread jazz, movies, and radio serials now transmits financial anxiety with equal efficiency. Meanwhile, in Lake Forest, Illinois, the Harrington mansion appears unchanged in its manicured perfection. Inside, however, the atmosphere has shifted subtly. Howard Harrington, banking magnate and family patriarch, hasn't left his wood-panelled study for 2 days. Telephone constantly at his ear, financial newspapers scattered across his desk. His daughter Catherine, now 22 and recently married to Robert Abbott of the railroad fortune, visits with concern. The household staff move quietly, sensing tension without understanding its source. The family's 18 domestic employees continue polishing silver and preparing elaborate meals while their employer faces financial demons. "Father?" Catherine calls softly from the study doorway. Howard looks up, forced smile not reaching his eyes. Just business matters, dear. Nothing to worry about. But there is plenty to worry about in Howard Harrington's world. The financial system he's navigated so confidently for decades suddenly seems built on sand. Colleagues whose judgment he trusted have made increasingly desperate moves in recent weeks. Margin calls, demands for cash to cover investment loans, have wiped out several fellow members of the Chicago Club. The wealthy inhabit the same volatile economic ecosystem as tenement dwellers and farmers, though with more substantial buffers against hardship. Howard Harrington won't lose his mansion if markets collapse, but his social position, business reputation, and self-image all rest on financial foundations now showing alarming cracks. Later that evening, Catherine and her husband Robert attend a charity gala at Chicago's Palmer House Hotel. Outwardly, nothing has changed in this world of privilege. Women drip with jewels, champagne flows despite prohibition, an orchestra plays fashionable dance music. Yet the conversation has shifted. Between practiced smiles, men exchange worried updates on specific stocks and companies. Women who normally discuss social matters now reference investments and bank stability. Information and reassurance have become the most precious commodities in wealthy circles. Harrison liquidated everything yesterday, Robert tells a colleague quietly over brandies, moved it all to government bonds. Panic thinking, the colleague scoffs, but his eyes dart nervously around the opulent ballroom. Markets fundamentally sound. These ritual reassurances echo through the upper class that October, desperate affirmations of prosperity, while financial instruments constructed on speculation and debt begin their inevitable collapse. As Catherine moves through the glittering crowd, she overhears fragments of similar conversations everywhere. The wife of a prominent manufacturer mentions their cancelled winter trip to France. A banking associate of her father declines champagne, whispering something about conserving resources, small signals of retrenchment amid ongoing displays of wealth. And what about our journalist, last seen travelling Route 66 westward to document America's transportation revolution? He's back in New York now, sitting in the offices of Collier's magazine, arguing with his editor about the article he's submitted. It's too pessimistic, the editor insists. Manuscript pages marked heavily with red pencil. Readers want optimism about America's future, not warnings about financial instability. The journalist sighs. His cross-country journey revealed not just America's transportation transformation, but the economic fault lines now threatening to rupture. In California, he observed produce rotting on docks because farmers couldn't afford shipping costs. In Chicago, half-completed skyscrapers stood abandoned when financing disappeared. In small towns across America, bank closures left communities stranded without savings or credit. The transportation networks connecting America physically are remarkable, he explains patiently, but they're also creating new vulnerabilities. Financial problems spread faster too. What happens in New York affects Iowa overnight now. The editor remains unconvinced. Rewrite it. Focus on the achievements, the highways, the air routes, the automobile culture. Leave economic analysis to the financial pages. This conversation repeats across American media that fall, warnings muted, concerns downplayed, optimism enforced, even as evidence mounts that the decade's prosperity rests on increasingly shaky foundations. That evening, our journalist walks Manhattan streets deep in thought. The city pulses, with energy as always, theatres illuminated, restaurants packed, fashionable crowds moving between entertainment venues. Nothing visibly suggests imminent collapse. Yet small signs appear here too. More men selling apples on street corners than last month. Help-wanted advertisements shrinking in newspapers. Luxury stores offering unprecedented sales. The whispered word recession replacing prosperity in overheard conversations. The journalist stops at a newsstand where tomorrow's papers already headline the day's market activity. Prices steady after recovery, bankers optimistic. The reassuring headline masks the day's extreme volatility and growing panic among financial insiders. Let's pull back now, seeing all our characters simultaneously across America on this October evening in 1929. They don't know each other. They live in different worlds with different concerns, yet increasingly their fates intertwine through economic and media networks that bind Americans together as never before. In the New York tenement, a family worries about layoffs while preparing for bed, their modest improvements to daily life potentially at risk. On the Iowa farm, a young farmer calculates and recalculates numbers that refuse to balance, wondering how long they can hold out if prices continue falling. In small-town Pennsylvania, a schoolteacher helps her father track his modest investments by radio reports, both trying to decipher contradictory expert advice. In a Chicago mansion, a banker stares sleeplessly at financial papers, calculating potential losses that would have seemed impossible months earlier. And in a Manhattan apartment, a journalist rewrites his article to satisfy editorial demands for optimism, even as his observations suggest caution. None of them know exactly what's coming. Even financial experts don't predict the full magnitude of the crash that will begin October 24th, 1929, just days away, or the Great Depression that will follow. But they sense shifts and adjustments, the subtle tightening of economic conditions that precedes visible crisis. What makes this historical moment poignant isn't just impending financial disaster, but how the decade's transformations create both new connections and new vulnerabilities. The same technologies bringing Americans together, automobiles, radio, mass media, modern banking, will also transmit economic disaster with unprecedented speed and scope. The 1920s fundamentally rewired America, physically through transportation networks, culturally through mass media, economically through consumer credit and financial speculation, socially through changing norms and expectations. This rewiring created the modern nation, recognizable in its broad outlines despite nearly a century of subsequent change. When the stock market crashes just days after our story ends, these connections will ensure no community remains untouched. The tenement worker, the Iowa farmer, the small-town teacher, the Chicago banker, and countless others will find themselves participating in shared national experience unlike anything previous generations knew. Not prosperity this time, but its opposite. Yet the fundamental transformations of the Roaring Twenties will endure even through economic disaster. Americans who learned to expect mechanical refrigeration won't return to iceboxes. Families introduced to radio entertainment won't abandon it for silence. Communities connected by highways and automobiles won't revert to isolation. The expectations of modernity, once established, prove difficult to surrender. So, as you drift towards sleep in your comfortable bed, consider how those Americans of 1929 shaped the world you inhabit. Their automobiles evolved into your fuel-injected, computer-controlled vehicles. Their crackling radios became your streaming services. Their tenuous airplane routes grew into the global aviation network. Their department stores transformed into today's online retailers. The The technologies change, but the human desires remain consistent for connection, for convenience, for entertainment, for mobility, for better lives than previous generations knew. The Roaring Twenties accelerated and democratized these possibilities, making previously elite experiences accessible to millions. As sleep approaches, perhaps reflect on how your own daily life would astonish those Americans of 1929, even as their experiences laid foundations for the world you take for granted. The threads connecting past to present remain unbroken, though sometimes invisible, weaving through time to create the social fabric we all inhabit together.